I never imagined that one forgotten date could rewrite the entire story of my marriage. For 5 years, I had lived my life like a silent promise. Wake up early, work late, save money, plan for a future I believed we were building together. I wasn't perfect, but I was loyal in ways that never asked for applause. Ria's birthday fell on a Thursday. The same Thursday, my biggest client threatened to cancel a contract that kept my entire department alive. That morning, I kissed her forehead before leaving. She was still asleep, curled under the blanket, her phone glowing beside her, notifications from friends, Instagram stories already flooding in. "I'll make it special tonight," I whispered, even though she couldn't hear me. At least, that's what I believed, the day that slipped away. By noon, chaos swallowed my office. Emergency meetings, angry emails, a deadline pulled forward by 2 weeks. My phone buzzed endlessly, but I ignored everything except work. I told myself I'd call Ria during lunch. Lunch never came. At 8:47 p.m., I finally looked at my phone. 23 missed calls, messages unread, silence that felt heavy. Then I saw the date, her birthday. My stomach dropped. I called immediately, straight to voicemail. I rushed home, cake from a roadside bakery in my hand, apology already forming on my lips. The house was dark. Her heels were gone. Her perfume lingered like an accusation. The confrontation. She came home at midnight, laughing, her phone in her hand. She didn't look at me. "You forgot," she said flatly. "I didn't forget you," I replied. "I forgot the date." She laughed, sharp, humiliating. "Do you know how stupid that sounds?" I tried to explain. "The office, the pressure, the future I was building for us." She cut me off. "My friends' husbands took them to dinners, vacations, surprises. And I worked late," I said quietly. She stared at me like I was a stranger. "Don't touch me," she snapped when I reached out. That hurt more than her words. The rejection. For the first time in our marriage, she slept in another room. The next morning, she dropped a sentence like a bomb. "I need space." Space turned into distance. Distance turned into silence. She stopped answering my calls, stopped wearing the ring, stopped pretending we were okay. Her friends filled her head with poison disguised as advice. "If he really loved you, he wouldn't forget." And slowly she began to believe that version of me. The breaking point. One night she said it. "I think I made a mistake marrying you." I didn't shout. I didn't beg. I just nodded. That terrified her more than any argument ever could. Because for the first time, I stopped chasing. And that was the moment everything changed, though she didn't realize it yet. Chapter 2. The silence became loud. The next morning, the apartment was eerily quiet. Ria had left early, probably meeting friends who validated her disappointment. Or worse, reinforced her belief that I was a husband unworthy of love. The coffee I brewed for her sat cold on the counter, untouched. I stared at it, tasting bitterness that had nothing to do with caffeine. I had tried to reach her, texts, calls, even a small gift, left on the dining table, but each attempt bounced back into the void. It was as if my life had been muted. I went to work, my mind spinning. Every spreadsheet, every email, every call to clients felt shallow. My focus, honed over years of discipline, cracked under the weight of absence. The first sign of change. By the third day of her silence, I made a decision. I would stop trying to convince her, not because I gave up on us, but because I realized that chasing her would only give her the power to control me. She had made the first move with rejection. Now it was my turn to reclaim my emotional boundaries. At work, I focused like never before. Every report, every presentation, every strategic decision carried the weight of my resolve. My colleagues noticed the shift. Something in my demeanor had changed. There was tension in my calm, determination in my quiet. And then came the first call that changed everything. The unexpected message. It wasn't from Ria. It was from her friend, Sneha. "Ria's upset," the message read. "She says she doesn't understand why you're acting." Different. Different. That word struck me like a gust of wind against a door I thought was closed. I didn't reply. Instead, I began planning, not revenge. Not malice, but a subtle reclamation of my life. The transformation begins. That evening, I went to a bar near the office, not to drink, but to observe. My posture, my presence, even the way I walked, began shifting. I wanted confidence, not arrogance. I wanted allure, not desperation. I realized that I had let her define my worth for too long. And though she didn't realize it yet, My life was about to take a turn she couldn't ignore. I started small. New clothes, sharper hairstyle, a presence that suggested capability, composure, and strength. Each change, though minor, sent subtle ripples through her world because she was still watching. The first ripple. 2 weeks later, Ria appeared at a social event I attended. Not invited, but drawn by curiosity. She wore a green silk dress, elegant, flawless, but her eyes betrayed her. She was unsettled. I didn't seek her attention. I didn't chase her. I stood among my peers, laughing, conversing, commanding respect. And she watched. For the first time since the birthday incident, I saw her eyes widen, not with anger, but with something like disbelief. She had expected weakness. Instead, I exuded control, calm, and unexpected charisma. The seed of realization. I caught glimpses of her watching me throughout the evening. A subtle glance, a paused laugh, a shift in stance when I entered a room. She couldn't hide it. Her curiosity was genuine, mixed with confusion. And that, I realized, was my new power. Not revenge, not malice, but the ability to reclaim my life while remaining emotionally unshakable. She had underestimated me. She had assumed that ignoring me would bend me, break me, or weaken me. But it had done the opposite. Her absence, her silence had become my catalyst. Closing the chapter. That night I returned home alone, but not lonely. I poured myself a drink and looked into the mirror. The man staring back at me wasn't the one who had forgotten a birthday. He was stronger, calmer, more present, and most importantly, untouchable by the whims of someone who tried to measure love in dates and social approval. Ria would come to realize that power in time, and when she did, she would see the difference between a man who chased and a man who rebuilt. She thought silence would destroy me. She didn't realize it would make me untouchable. Chapter 3, The Power Shift. The days that followed Ria's silent judgment became a test of patience, strategy, and subtle dominance. At home, I didn't call or message. I didn't leave gifts or apologies. Instead, I focused on life, the kind of life that demanded attention, respect, and quiet awe. Work consumed me, and yet I carved out moments to refine myself, a sharper suit, a cleaner hairstyle, and the posture of someone entirely in control. The unexpected encounter. One evening, I attended a corporate gala, a grand event with chandeliers, crystal glasses, and the soft murmur of elite professionals. It was a night meant for networking, but I noticed her immediately. Ria had arrived with friends, her elegance undeniable, yet there was a flicker in her eyes, something I had never seen before. Hesitation, curiosity, and maybe fear. I didn't approach her. I let the scene unfold naturally. Conversations, laughter, and the subtle sway of my charisma created an invisible force around me. People gravitated toward my confidence, including those who had once underestimated me. And she noticed the first whisper of regret. A friend of hers whispered across the room, "She can't stop looking at him." I didn't react, didn't smile, didn't even glance her way. Yet I could feel the energy, the magnetic pull that had shifted overnight. I had become untouchable, a man defined by action, not apology. The realization was exhilarating. For weeks she had tried to punish me with silence, but that silence had only amplified my presence, my allure, my control. And for the first time, she was no longer in the driver's seat. Strategic decisions. Later that week, I began making subtle changes in our shared world. A new car appeared in the driveway, not extravagant, just precise, elegant, and undeniably my taste. Invitations to exclusive events arrived in our home, addressed to both of us but only accepted by me. She noticed, of course. She saw that life moved forward with or without her approval. Her absence no longer hurt. It simply reminded me of the distance she had chosen. The social ripple. At the next social gathering, her friends approached me. Subtle compliments, sly questions about my personal achievements, and careful observations about my lifestyle. They were all hints that her absence had become glaring. She stood to the side, silent, watching. And yet, for the first time in months, she approached me not to apologize, not to scold, but to inquire subtly about my plans. Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the control she believed she still held. The silent acknowledgement. That night, I returned home and didn't call out to her. I didn't announce my presence. I simply entered the space and went about my evening, confident in my path, in my life, in my choices. Ria remained silent in the living room, aware of my every move. And that was enough. The power had shifted, not through confrontation, but through presence, resilience, and quiet dominance. She thought ignoring me would break me. I had used her silence to rewrite the rules. Chapter 4. The Ultimate Turnaround. The days following the gala were unlike anything Ria or I had experienced before. The tension in the house was palpable. She avoided direct confrontation, but her eyes followed my every move. Even in silence, she acknowledged the change in me, the transformation she had tried to ignore. The morning shift. I woke early, not for her, not for anyone, but for myself. I reviewed business plans while enjoying coffee by the balcony, the city's morning light filtering softly through the glass. Ria entered quietly, her presence tentative. She lingered near the doorway, watching me with a mixture of curiosity, frustration, and subtle admiration. I didn't look up. I didn't need to. My calm and control spoke louder than words. Subtle reassertion of power. Throughout the day, I handled calls, emails, and meetings with a confidence I hadn't felt in years. Every interaction with clients, employees, and friends reinforced my presence. Ria attempted to interject, to offer opinions, but I smiled politely and proceeded with grace and authority. Her influence over me, once overpowering, was now minimal. She realized this. Later, I left home for an evening charity gala. I invited her, but only as a guest, not as an acknowledgement of her prior power. She knew the rules had changed. At the gala was a grand affair with hundreds of influential guests. My presence, calm and commanding, drew attention. People approached me, asked questions, complimented my work. Ria followed, her expression unreadable. She couldn't approach me directly without acknowledging the shift. Instead, she lingered in the background, observing. I noticed her. Not with longing, not with anger, but with quiet awareness. I had transformed her perception of me completely. The subtle confrontation. At the gala, Ria's friend tried to speak on her behalf. But the truth was evident to everyone. I was in control now. Ria's posture faltered slightly when she realized the extent of her oversight. Her subtle attempts to regain influence were visible, but I remained composed. My decisions, my calm presence, my mastery over every small interaction. Everything screamed authority and independence. The reflection. After returning home late at night, I found Ria waiting quietly in the living room. No words were exchanged, just silent acknowledgement. She had seen enough. I poured a drink, sat down calmly, and reflected on how far I had come. The power had shifted, not through arguments, not through anger, but through consistent confidence and self-respect. She thought ignoring me would break me. I had used her absence and doubt to become untouchable. That night, I went to bed knowing the game had changed entirely. Chapter 5. The Final Shift. The air at home felt different now, charged with tension but tinged with curiosity. Ria no longer tried to hide her emotions. She simply observed, a silent acknowledgement of the man I had become. Morning confrontation. I awoke to the faint aroma of coffee. Ria was in the kitchen, pretending to be casual. But I could sense her nervous energy. Morning, I said calmly. My tone didn't carry anger, only composed confidence. She froze slightly, then returned the greeting, but her voice lacked conviction. Her unspoken question hung in the air. Have you changed? I smiled subtly, poured myself a cup of coffee, and focused on my day. My actions, not words, were the answer. Public display of independence. At work, I made decisive moves. Meetings, contracts, and negotiations, all executed flawlessly. Word of my accomplishments spread quickly. Ria attempted to call me, sending messages that begged for attention, but I ignored them. She realized that the days of control and expectation over me were over. I was untouchable, not through force, but through calm and competence. Evening challenge. That evening, I returned home with a subtle surprise, an event I had organized for my friends and colleagues. The moment Ria saw it, her expression betrayed a mixture of awe and regret. Guests mingled, praising the arrangements. I observed quietly, knowing every detail showcased my planning, my independence, and my ability to succeed without her input. Ria's realization. She approached me cautiously, standing at the edge of the gathering. Her eyes spoke volumes, admiration, jealousy, regret, and something deeper, unspoken. You did all this? She asked softly, voice barely above a whisper. I nodded politely. I did. For everyone who believed in me, including myself. She swallowed, her pride wounded. For years, she had assumed I needed her guidance. Now she saw that I had flourished without it. The closing moment. The night ended with a quiet exchange, a glance, a nod, a mutual recognition that the dynamics had shifted entirely. I had achieved what words could not, my independence, my respect, and my control over my own life. Rhea no longer held power over me. The game was truly mine now. She thought I would crumble. I had risen stronger than ever. Chapter 6. The Turning Point. The morning sun filtered softly through the curtains, casting a serene glow over the house. But serenity is deceptive. Inside, tension simmered. Rhea's attitude had shifted subtly in the past days. She no longer masked her curiosity and wariness. It was visible in every glance, every gesture. Unexpected encounter. I left the house for a planned meeting with business associates. Rhea, of course, had expected to see a man who needed her guidance, someone who would falter without her approval. Instead, she was met with a man exuding composure and quiet authority. The meeting went smoothly. Every interaction, every handshake, and every negotiation underscored my independence and mastery over my own life. News of my accomplishments trickled back home before I even returned, and Rhea could not hide her growing anxiety. The subtle game. Returning home. I noticed small changes. Rhea had organized the living room meticulously, as if anticipating my reactions. She tried to regain influence subtly, placing items in exact order, adjusting lighting to please me. Yet I remained unaffected, observing quietly. "Why are you doing this?" I asked lightly, noting her hesitation. "I thought it might help," she murmured, avoiding eye contact. I smiled faintly. "Your efforts are appreciated, but my life doesn't need correcting anymore." Her silence spoke louder than words. The realization was hitting her hard. The man she once believed dependent was now entirely his own master. An evening revelation. Later that evening, I hosted a small gathering with close friends. The room buzzed with laughter and casual conversation. Rhea stood near the window, watching from a distance, trying to mask the astonishment in her eyes. Guests complimented me on my achievements and charisma, all in my presence. Each compliment, each look of respect further reminded Rhea of the new reality. She no longer held power over my emotions or decisions. Rhea's confession. Finally, she approached, hesitating, unsure of her tone and choice of words. "You've changed," she said softly, a mixture of admiration and regret evident in her eyes. I nodded politely, maintaining my calm. Change is inevitable when you focus on yourself instead of seeking approval from others. Her lower lip trembled. I could see the shift, the realization that her previous attempts to control or manipulate me were futile, a quiet victory. As the night drew to a close, I observed quietly from across the room. The moment was subtle but significant. I had claimed my independence, showcased my growth, and left an undeniable mark on Rhea's consciousness. She thought she had all the power. I had quietly reclaimed it, without confrontation, without force. Chapter 7. When regret finally spoke. By the 7th chapter of our story, silence had become louder than arguments ever were. Rhea no longer mocked me. She no longer complained. She no longer compared me to others. Instead, she watched. Every morning, she noticed how I woke up early, calm and focused, no longer checking my phone for her approval. I dressed neatly, left for work with confidence, and returned with a presence that filled the room without effort. This was the part she never expected. The weight of realization. One evening, she finally broke. "I don't recognize you anymore," she said quietly while standing behind me. I didn't turn around immediately. I finished pouring my tea, placed the cup on the table, and only then looked at her. "That's because you never tried to know me," I replied calmly. Her eyes welled up, not dramatic tears, but heavy ones, the kind that come from regret rather than anger. She remembered the birthday night now, not the missed wish, but everything that came before it. How I stayed up late working, how I sacrificed weekends, how I supported her dreams while ignoring my own, and how easily she dismissed it all. The apology that came too late. "I was wrong," she whispered. "I thought you'd always be there." Waiting. That sentence said everything. I smiled, not with bitterness but clarity. "I was there," I said. "I just stopped begging to be seen." She tried to step closer, but I gently raised my hand, not to stop her physically but emotionally. "I don't hate you," I continued, "but I won't go back to being invisible. For the first time, she understood. This wasn't revenge. This was growth. The final choice. That night, Ria sat alone in the bedroom while I stood by the balcony, watching city lights flicker below. She asked softly, almost afraid of the answer. "Is there still a chance?" I thought for a long moment. "Only if we both change," I said honestly. "And only if love is no longer used as power." She nodded slowly, not relieved, not victorious, but humbled. A new beginning or an ending. Chapter 7 doesn't end with shouting or dramatic exits. It ends with something heavier. Two adults standing at a crossroads. One who finally learned self-worth, and another who learned regret too late. Whether we walk together again or separately. One thing is certain, I will never shrink myself again to make someone stay. Chapter 8, the space between us. Morning arrived quietly. No arguments, no messages, no forced smiles. Ria woke up before me for the first time in years. She didn't wake me. She didn't touch my phone. She didn't ask questions. She just watched me sleep for a moment, then walked away. That silence wasn't peace. It was distance. When absence becomes real. Over the next few days, something changed between us. She stopped checking where I was going. Stopped asking who I was with. Stopped trying to reclaim control. Instead, she started noticing what she had lost. I came home late one evening, not because of work, but because I chose to. I had dinner alone, walked through the city, and let the quiet settle inside me. When I entered the apartment, Ria was sitting on the couch, holding her phone, unread messages open. "You didn't tell me you'd be late," she said softly. "I don't have to anymore," I replied. Not cold, just honest. That truth hurt her more than anger ever did. Her fear, my calm. She finally said what she had been afraid to admit. "I feel like I'm losing you." I looked at her, really looked. "You lost the version of me that needed permission," I said. "But I'm still here." She nodded slowly, realizing the difference. This wasn't punishment. This was consequence. A test of choice. One night she asked something unexpected. "Do you still love me?" I didn't answer immediately. Love had changed shape. It wasn't begging anymore. It wasn't silent sacrifice. "I care," I said honestly. "But love needs respect to survive." Tears rolled down her cheeks. Not dramatic, not loud. Just real. She reached out, then stopped herself. For the first time, she didn't assume access to me. The balance shifts. That was when I knew. Whether we stayed together or not, the power dynamic was gone forever. I had my life, my confidence, my direction. She could walk beside me, but never ahead of me again. Final chapter. What she lost, what I became. The end didn't come with shouting. It didn't come with slammed doors or dramatic goodbyes. It came quietly, like clarity. The conversation that changed everything. Ria and I sat across from each other at the dining table, where we once planned birthdays, trips, and a future that felt guaranteed. She spoke first. "I don't recognize you anymore." I smiled, not proudly, not sadly. "That's because you only knew the version of me who was afraid to lose you." She lowered her eyes. "And now?" "Now," I said calmly, "I know I won't lose myself for anyone." That was the moment she understood. She hadn't lost me because of a birthday. She lost me because she stopped respecting the man who stood in front of her every day. Her regret came too late. She reached for my hand, this time gently. "I didn't think you'd ever change." I didn't pull away, but I didn't hold on either. "That was the mistake," I said. "Love doesn't survive when one person believes the other will never leave." Tears filled her eyes. She whispered, "Can we fix this?" I answered honestly, the hardest thing I had learned to do. "We could try," I said, "but it would only work if you loved me for who I am now, not who I used to be." She stayed silent. That silence was her answer, walking away without hate. The next morning I packed slowly. No anger, no revenge, no drama. Ria stood in the doorway watching. "I never wanted this," she said. "I know," I replied. "But wanting isn't enough." As I walked out, she didn't stop me. For the first time, she knew what it felt like to be the one left behind. The life she'll only hear about. Months passed. I built a life that didn't revolve around proving anything. I traveled. I laughed again. I became the man people respected, not pitied. One evening, a mutual friend told me, "She asks about you sometimes." I nodded. I hope she's doing well. And I meant it. The real ending. This wasn't a story about revenge. It was about self-respect. She rejected me because she thought I would always stay. I walked away because I learned I deserved more. And that lesson, that's something she'll remember every birthday for the rest of her life.